Hello everyone, this is Ashley Tucker. Thank you for joining me today. For today's card, I started with a piece of Bristol smooth paper and I did some Distress Oxide blending on it. I used the colors Picked Raspberry, Wilted Violet, Salty Ocean, and Black Soot. I went back and forth between the different colors to get a really nice blend. It's always pretty easy to blend with Distress Oxide ink, but I find it even easier to blend with it on Bristol smooth paper. I used a piece of scrap paper to hold down my Bristol smooth paper while I finished the blending. Not only does this prevent my fingers from getting all inky, it also protects my blending. If you touch the Distress Oxide ink while it's still drying, you can get fingerprints all over your panel. This is my biggest reason for using the paper because it doesn't really bother me to get ink on my fingers. I pretty much always have some kind of ink on my hands. I used my heat tool to dry this panel because I'm going to be embossing on this and I need to make sure that that Distress Oxide ink is nice and dry. I used quite a bit of powder to go over this before I embossed. Distress Oxide ink takes a while to dry, so you got to be really careful when you're embossing on it. I made sure to test the paper with my embossing powder before I got to the actual stamping. For this stamping on this card, I'm going to use a few different Mama Elephant stamp sets that came out in their newest release. I stamped this scripty sentiment in Versamark ink, and then I embossed it with a white embossing powder. The sentiment that I chose says warm holiday hugs, and the reason that I chose that is because this card is going to have a lot of snow on it, and I really liked the juxtaposition of having a warm sentiment with a bunch of cold around it. So I chose a circle die, which is slightly bigger than my sentiment, and then I used that die to cut a circle out of some masking paper, and then I placed that masking paper over my sentiment to protect it. Sorry about my moving camera, I totally bumped my head into it and that's why it was moving around. I have my panel taped down to a board and now I'm going to tape a stencil with some circles on it over the top of that. I'm going to be going over this stencil with some Nouveau Moonstone Glimmer Paste. I just got this glimmer paste and I love it. It is so sparkly and beautiful and I know that I'm going to want to get a lot more colors. I for sure know that I want the red one because I feel like I can make some really beautiful Christmas cards with it. But then of course I also want all of the other colors, not just the red one. That's really the curse of being a crafter. You really just want all of the things. Okay, so before that glimmer paste dried, I took the stencil off and I washed it well quickly because you don't want that to dry on your stencil. And then I removed that masking paper. I set that panel aside to dry, and while it was drying, I stamped a cute little kitty snowman from the Yappy Woofmas stamp set from Mama Elephant, and I stamped that onto some Neenah Solar White with my Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink. I colored in this little snowman with my Copic markers. I did very simple coloring, and all of the marker caps are up in the corner if you want to see what colors I used. I really liked the way the snowmen turned out in the card I did on Monday with the shading in the light blue, so I decided to do that same kind of shading for this little kitty snowman. For the scarf, I used this pink color, and you'll see that I have a marker cap there for a nice dark blue, but I didn't end up using that. I changed my mind, and I got a lighter blue out. I did think that that other blue was just way too dark for this, and I'm happy that I decided to change it. I kind of chose the colors for the scarf directly from that background that I just created, because I want this snowman to really work well with it. For the holly berries on his hat, I didn't want to use a red color because, like I said, I'm trying to make this snowman go with that background really well, so I chose a really dark pink instead. Once I finished coloring this little guy in, I used my Scan and Cut 2 to cut it out. I'm still really loving my Scan and Cut, by the way. It is awesome. I took out an A2 size piece of Nina Solar White and I used my scissors to cut a curvy line across that, and that's going to be my ground. I used my ATG gun to adhere that background panel that I made onto an A2 size card base. Next, I popped up that snowy ground that I cut out with some foam tape on the bottom of the card. I glued down my little snowman off to the side on one of the little hilly parts of the ground. I used the same marker that I shaded the snowman with to add a little bit of a drop shadow underneath him. Next, I took out my white gel pen and I added some highlights to the hat on the snowman, as well as those holly berries. The last thing that I did to finish up this card is I took out my Wink of Stella glitter brush and I went over the snowman a little bit so that he'd kind of sparkle like snow. I didn't want to add any embellishments to this card because with that glimmer paste in the background, it definitely doesn't need it. Here's a closer look at the finished card, and you can really see that shimmer on the glimmer paste. Thank you for watching today. I hope you really enjoyed this awesome winter sky background using some of the newer products from Mama Elephant. All of the supplies that I used today can be found in the description down below. If you enjoyed watching and you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, I would encourage you to hit that subscribe button so that you can see all of my future videos. I'm going to be back with a new video on Monday. Again, thank you for watching. I appreciate all of you, and I hope you have a great day today.